But it's time now for Uncancelled. And you know this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Partygate was a dark time for Boris Johnson, with his premiership hanging by a thread, if you believed the media hysterics. But as the appalling war in Ukraine rages on and the PM rises to the occasion, has he managed to save himself? Well, Rod Liddle, who I must say was one of the PM's spikiest critics over the past few weeks, thinks the war is revealing the best side of Boris, the one people voted for and the one who gets the big stuff right. Supplying weapons to Ukraine, training troops and hitting Putin hard with sanctions, the PM's handling of the crisis has been admirable. But according to Rod, he must now show mercy as well as steel and open Britain's doors to the Ukrainian refugees. And Rod Liddle joins me now. Rod, so first up, I mean, you've done a 180 on Boris. You think he's the right man for this moment?
Yes, probably, or better than the others. But can I just say to Nigel Nelson, because this is an important thing to me. I was born as a man, as a boy, rather presumptuously. That's how I was described on my birth certificate. But later, I decided that I was a Cocker Spaniel. And I have over the years tried to nail on ears, and that is what I think I am. I am a Cocker Spaniel, and Nigel is absolutely right that if I think I'm a Cocker Spaniel, then I am one. So thank you for sticking up, Nigel, for me and people like me.
Nigel?
Boris. I'm not one of the people who thought that...
Cocker Spaniel if he chooses to be.
He's happy with you to be a Cocker Spaniel. But yes, to Boris.
I'm not one of the people who thought that Partygate was pointless or trivial. I think it told us something about the incompetence of the government and also the arrogance of the government. But I do think, and this has been said time and time again, that whilst Boris is incompetent and a bit of a buffoon, he does tend to get the big things right. And I think he's performed with a relatively commendable array of steel over Ukraine, and has probably been better than any of the other people we could think of who could possibly be Prime Minister at the time. And it may well be in the end that the Putin, therefore, has come to the help of Boris, because my suspicion is that the polls will begin to show a tilt back to the Tories in the next few weeks. But the one thing I think he could do is show a bit more magnanimity to those poor people who are trying to get the hell out of Ukraine and are now making us, we British people, look as if we're mean-minded and possibly even racist for not letting more people in. There is a crisis in Europe. This is very different to a bunch of 25-year-old male chancellors from Syria, Somalia, Algeria, coming here in boats in an attempt to circumvent the guidelines and indeed the rules on asylum seeking. This is an immediate and present crisis, and we should respond to it by letting in as many Ukrainians as we can possibly take. And I would say that would be in excess of 100,000. And I don't think people would mind that. I think people are fully behind the Ukrainian government. They are entirely sympathetic towards the Ukrainian people. And I think those people would be a worthy addition to our country, and it's what we should be doing.
Yeah, and especially given the vast majority of these Ukrainians would want to return home, you would hope, and they would hope in the next couple of years. But Rod, what do you make of the argument that's coming from within the Home Office, which is that if we don't do the security checks now, if there's an issue in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time with one of these people coming in, potentially causing some sort of crime, it will be the Home Office that is blamed?
Yeah, I take no notice of that whatsoever. And I've got quite a lot of time for Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, who I think gets a rough deal from the media and indeed from many of her colleagues. Largely, I think, International Women's Day yesterday, largely because she's a woman. And a small woman and a woman of Asian background. I think she, for many reasons, gets a bad press. and not for the right reasons. But I don't think that that's a player. The truth is that contrary to the refugees we have been taking in recently, it is very, very unlikely that you will find a Ukrainian trying to stab people to death on London Bridge. You know, these are people, and this is important. And one is often called a racist for bringing this kind of stuff up, but it's not racism at all. It's purely natural that we have a lot in common with Ukrainians. They share the same sort of culture that we do, the same sort of background, the same sort of beliefs, the Christian belief, and all that kind of stuff. And that's important. But what's even more important is that they're close neighbours of ours. It's only 800 miles to the Ukrainian border from the coast of England. And so I think this is an exceptional thing, a bit like Hong Kong was an exceptional thing. And I thought we should have taken in more immigrants from Hong Kong as well, and indeed previously, because of our historical ties, Zimbabwe. But we need to respond now. We need to respond quickly. And at the moment, the French are thoroughly enjoying themselves, saying that we are cold-hearted and a repulsive country which doesn't care about people. Let us show them the opposite to that. Let us take in as many as we can and continue to play a very, very hard ball with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, Rob, because the vast majority of the people leaving Ukraine are women and children, because it's actually illegal for working Ukrainian men to leave the country at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, that's exactly it. It is almost exclusively women and children.
Or elderly, or very old people.
We've been taking in have been almost exclusively young men between the ages of 18 and 30, or indeed, if you believe what they say to the immigration authorities, 12 and 30, as they sometimes underestimate their ages. So, no, of course we should do this. And of course it's likely to be a very, very temporary settlement. But, I wouldn't object to the Ukrainians staying here a bit. They're hardworking people, they're clever people, they're well-educated people. We should welcome them with open arms and a lot of love.
So your overall verdict, Boris has done a good job when it comes to dealing with the crisis, but a botched job in terms of the humanitarian effort.
Yeah, don't push it down. I'm not going to give him that ringing an endorsement. I'd say he's 7 to 8 out of 10 on facing up to Putin.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement,
which isn't bad. And 3 to 4 on
Liddle.
Some of the other stuff. What he's got to do now is drop this national insurance hike. There's going to be widespread poverty.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, but he's got to stand up to his Chancellor. And I think he maybe is feeling like he can do that now, whereas in the midst of Partygate, he couldn't. But Rod Liddle, fascinating analysis as ever. Thank you, Rod. We'll speak again next week.